Hello and welcome to the Noob Spearo podcast, where we interview experts, authorities and characters on all things spearfishing. Come and join us after the show at noobspearo.com, the online spearfishing community helping you to become a better spearo. Here are your hosts for the show, Shrek and Turbo.
G'day Noob Spearo community, Shrek and Turbo here. Today we have Darren Shields, a man synonymous with New Zealand spearfishing. He is Managing Director of Weddy, New Zealand's premier spearfishing brand. He's featured in numerous DVDs and YouTube videos, including high quality DIYs and how-tos. He's also the 6-time New Zealand spearfishing champ, and he's about to compete in the World Champs. Whereabouts is that, Darren?
Just south of Lima, Peru, but I hope I don't have to compete. I'll manage a reserve, so if I do, it means somebody's sick or injured, and I'm not really up to the game these days of competing, but I suppose if I had to throw my suit on, I'd give it a go.
Oh, well, g'day anyway, Darren. Thanks for coming on the show.
No problem.
So I read a bit on your bio. It says you're a prolific diver. You've dived one end of the country to the other, and you've got around globally quite a bit. Where did you get started? I guess would be the place to start.
When I was 5 years old, my old man threw me into the water in a place called Matai Bay in the far north of New Zealand, and that sort of got me going from there, because my dad was a competitive spearo. He won those national spearfishing champs once, and that was how I kicked off.
Wow. So what was the first spot and sort of like the first sort of fish you started shooting?
The first spot I jumped in was a deep pinnacle, and Dad was trying to shoot kingfish, and I still remember a school of kingfish coming up to him, and he missed the first school that came through. He missed one, and then he got one on a second shot, and I suppose that just got me going, and I think from there we moved to another rock that stuck out of the water, and he gave me a gun, and I shot a couple of blue mau, and that was it. I was hooked.
Yeah, well, hooked at 5 years old. Well, that sounds like a great way to get started.
Yeah, no, it was.
So was your dad a bit of a mentor to you when you got started? Did he sort of coach you up for a few years?
He did. Him and a lot of his friends. Sometimes Dad had to work and, didn't get as much time. But yeah, Dad was, and as I say, several of his friends. And I used to follow some of the older divers and watch what they were doing. So, yeah.
Okay, so what were kind of some of the biggest obstacles you faced starting out? You had plenty of guys to go diving with because of your dad and his network of friends. I mean, did you start with hand-me-down equipment like the rest of us?
Yeah, I was going to say equipment was the hardest thing. I mean, nowadays guys are spoilt for choice, and you still get guys they over calculate what they need and get too carried away. Whereas in the old days, I mean, I still remember Dad and his mate making me a little neoprene vest. That was my first real piece of equipment that was mine, and it was only a little vest, and I thought I was made, swimming in the wintertime with that on when I was about 6 or 7. But that was it. You didn't have the access to the good gear like nowadays.
Yeah. I've seen some of your gear tutorials. In fact, we've got a bit of a getting started video guide on our website just for people starting out in the sport, and you've got some great tutorials there just on kind of an overview of different components of gear and a very, very, very pragmatic approach to gear. So they're on our website up until we have our own sort of content up, but great videos.
Oh, it's good. Thank you.
Well, question that we like to move on to is the story of your most memorable fish. I guess we've sort of got a bit of an idea of where you started. What was the best fish you shot, or the one that stands out most in your mind?
There's probably 3. One's my first kingfish I ever speared, and it was a school elective trip. I still remember getting that. It actually swam up to grab somebody's line and peeled away, and I shot it. It wasn't very big. I suppose I was about 12 when I got that. And then probably the 31-pound snapper I got when I was about 19. And at that stage, that was the first fish over 30-pound ever shot in New Zealand. And I held the record for quite a number of years with that. And then I went on to shoot a 60-odd kilo yellowfin in Vanuatu. I was guiding, and I had a heap of guys, and they'd got sort of 3 at that stage, I think, and it was my birthday, and nobody could get this one big yellowfin that kept coming in, so I said, well, do you mind if I have a crack? And I got it. So that was pretty significant for me.
That's pretty cool. I've also seen one of your blue water sort of a guide to getting started with blue water hunting. Now, whereabouts off Vanuatu were you? You were diving out in the deep blue? Were you using flasher, burleys? What's
everything? Yeah, we're on the fads off Vanuatu. Yeah.
Okay, off Port Vila.
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Just to go back, you said that your first kingfish, your 12-kilo kingfish, did you say that was a school elective trip?
Yeah. It wasn't 12 kilos. I was 12 years old. I think it would be lucky if it was 10 kilos back then. But yeah, I was fortunate to have a teacher that was a spear fisherman, and we did electives once a week, and you could go shooting at gun clubs, you could knit, you could whatever. There was all sorts of different activities, and one of them was spearfishing that this teacher kicked off, and it was great because we broke down a few times so we wouldn't get back to school, so we just had to keep diving. So it was fantastic.
Beats the shit out of knitting anyway.
Oh yeah.
I heard you say knitting. I actually seen Turbo's eyebrows perk up. Darren, he was thinking shit. He would have done that. He would have gone the knitting. I think.
I love a good homespun jumper.
One of the questions I really love to ask some of the guests we have on the show, Darren, is what's the scariest moment you've had out spearfishing, and what did you come away with it with? What lessons did you learn?
I suppose scariest is that people always talk sharks and things, and I've had some pretty scary times with those. But I suppose you've got to look at pulling your best mate off the bottom dead. That's pretty scary. And something, you hope never to experience again. I've been involved in sort of 4 deaths out diving, and the last one, as I say, was my best mate, and I found him. So you come away with that with a real appreciation of life and realising that, just pushing it that little bit to try and get whatever it is you're after, it's just not worth it when you see the damage it does to all the people that are left behind, his family and things like that. It was just a tragedy I would hope never anybody in the Spearo community would ever have to go through. It's just awful. So that for me would stand out. I mean, sharks, yes, but that's real deep to the bone stuff when you're involved in that.
Yeah, that's absolutely terrible, Darren. But one of the things we've noticed from asking these questions to experienced guys is just how much appreciation they have for diver safety.
Yeah.
I know we've all gone out and dived by ourselves and we've all pushed it on occasion, but I think for our audience out there, listening to experienced guys, the take-home message really is to buddy up and dive within your limits.
Yeah, you're right there, but the problem is the sport we're in is an individual sport. We are individual spearos. If you're a spear fisherman or a hunter or whatever, you're an individual. So while the intentions of buddying up and doing that is all very well and good, it's not the animal we are. And we do it in our competitions now in New Zealand with all the drownings we had. It is now a pairs comp. But in day-to-day diving, I like nothing better than getting on a bit of coaster on my own with no other diver around me and, going for a swim and shooting a couple of fish. And I don't think we should ever lose the ability to have that freedom. We get too wrapped up in cotton wool these days. I think there's got to be a certain amount of personal responsibility taken in what you're doing and to do it, safely and make sure you do come back. But I'm not a fan of wrapping everybody up in cotton wool. I think it's a load of rubbish. We don't know how to survive if we're constantly having somebody looking after us.
That's a fair call. Moving on to something a bit lighter. The last guest we spoke with too, Darren, he had a couple of mates die on him out spearfishing as well. So it's not something we talk about lightly. But while you've been out there, what's the funniest thing you've seen out on a spearfishing trip?
Oh crikey, there's been a few of them over the years.
Tell us one where you got a nickname out of it or something.
Geez, I can't think of any of those. I mean, I've seen guys get all wrapped up by a fish and get dragged, just hang on too long and the fish swims round and round and it's like a goat tied to a stake that doesn't have a swivel on it. Eventually, their arms are stuck at their sides and they're completely wound up in their float line. There's been all sorts of guys falling out of boats at high speed when boats have been racing each other. I suppose going back to the World Champs in Spain, I think it was in 1994 I was there, and this huge fleet of us, there were 75 boats, left this little place called Gijón on the coast there, and we were tearing along, and I reckon it was probably close to 6 metre swells, and all these young guys had been given the job of driving the inflatables, and they'd never really done it before, a lot of them. There was outboards falling off boats. I remember it was one of the Aussie guys, and I can't remember who it was, I'm pretty sure, come flying past me and he fell out. So there's been lots of moments. It's hard to put my finger on one.
There's always an Aussie somewhere to do that, isn't there? Hey, I'm actually loving this interview. I'm from New Zealand myself, Darren. I'm from Taranaki. I've been here 10 years now.
Yeah.
practically an Australian, but it's great to outnumber an Australian for a change. So Turbo's copping it today, so this is great.
Yeah, that's good.
Anyway, moving on. All right, Darren. It's about time that we opened up the Veterans Vault, and this is where we sort of throw it over to you, where you want to give us a bit of insight or talk to us about something that you're passionate about within spearfishing, or that you sort of feel that you're an authority on.
I don't know about an authority on it, but the thing I'm really passionate about these days is us looking after the fishery, because, I mean, I've been a Spearo now for 43 years, and I've seen a huge decline in fish stocks, and people argue it and talk about science and things like that. And I don't know. I just know some of the places I dive now, those fish just aren't there like they used to be. And people can tell me till they're blue in the face that this has been done and that's been done. But honestly, if we don't start really looking after what we've got left, the greenies are going to do it for us. And they're going to make decisions we're not going to like. So I still, even though I've been a competitive Spearo all my life, I still struggle with the amount of fish we kill in spearfishing comps, and I don't think it's right. And I'm a bit of a black sheep over here in the competitive world. I get a bit of a hard time, but you know, I don't think we can point our finger at everybody else. We've got to look after our own backyard before we start accusing commercial operators or line fishers or whatever it is. We've got to make sure we do right. And there's better ways of proving we're a better Spearo than other guys and taking very large amounts of fish out of a small area, you know, over a day or a 2-day period. And I think we've got to move ahead and get more proactive in that area. I've just been over your way, actually, and I was going on a charter trip with a bunch of line fishermen. And when I got on the boat, all the way up at the Lockhart River, Nomad Charters, I was told I wasn't allowed to spearfish, and they made up all sorts of stories about liability and things like that, but I don't think that was the case. I just don't think they like Spearos. And at the end of the day, I would have taken less fish than I think what was killed by the line fishers. Yet even though they were releasing fish, they did keep some to eat, which is great, but there was a few released that were going to die, that were dead. So, you know, I think we've got to be careful. We're a small number in the community compared to some of these other groups, and we'd be easily quashed if we're not careful.
Yeah, we were just speaking to Richard Leonard, and he gets around sort of globally in the spearfishing world, and he was talking about the contrast between some of the European guys and the Western Spearos, and how they in Europe they tend to admire the art, and you see a lot of the videos on YouTube where they dive to phenomenal depths and that really to spear fish that we would ignore a lot of the time in Australia and New Zealand, where the fish are probably more prolific. It's not as overfished as the Med. And I think perhaps a lot of the Spearos are going that way now, where they enjoy more the art and the chase, and maybe just taking home 2 fish instead of needing to shoot 10 or 15.
Yeah, that's what it should be. I mean, they've had to learn that art in Europe. I competed in Croatia, and I swam for 6 hours one day and got one fish that was about 800 grams, and that was sort of kicked me off towards like ending my competitive career, because I thought, here I am in Croatia trying to shoot the last fish they have in the ocean to prove that I'm better than the other man. And I thought, this is wrong. You know, we shouldn't be doing this. Beautiful waters, but just devoid of any fish. And I don't know. I'd hate to see that happen in this part of the world, but you know, as populations grow, that pressure, that recreational pressure especially, is going to get put on the fishery stock. So
you mentioned there, Darren, you wanted to see something about the competition rules and how it encourages you to take a lot of fish from a small area. What do you sort of suggest could be done to sort of change the rules, I guess?
What I did, I came up with an event about 3 years ago, and I'm really passionate about it, but I'm struggling to get it off the ground here. A few guys let me run it alongside a normal spearing event. What it is I had a good look at what goes on every day when you go diving, and as you said, we shoot 2 or 3 fish or something. I sort of estimate on a good day you might shoot 4 or 5 fish. So I got the fish list that we have in a spearfishing comp, picked out 4 of the fish which I think can take being speared.
Yeah.
Okay. So I make 2 lists. One list is 4 or 5 fish you can spear, and another list is about 20 to 30 species which you can only take a photo of. So you go out with your buddy with a camera and 2 guns, and you can dive down and you can take a photo of a snapper. Then your buddy can dive down and spear it, and you get 100 points for the photo and 100 points for the speared fish.
Okay.
But it also means I've added back in a lot of the species which we've taken out, a lot of the under rock species and some of the more rarer species which we don't shoot anymore. I've added them in the camera section. So it's really given us a great list, because I found in the last few spearing comps I got in, you found you'd shoot most of the fish that were available in that area in the first 3 hours, and for the last 3 hours you were bored shitless. You had nothing to do.
Yeah.
Whereas with 30 odd species on your camera list, you were going right till the very end, finding more and more and more fish, and it's a real thrill. Coming at the end of the day, you've got 4 fish you've speared, and you've got, maybe 20 or 30 species on your camera. You don't throw the 4 fish in a pile at the end of the way, and you actually take them home and eat them, because it's a nice little feed. Whereas you come into the comp, you've got 20 fish in your bag, and you're tired. You can't be bothered filleting them, and you're happy to let them go, and somebody auction them off. You walk down the road to the fish and chip shop and buy fish and chips, or go to a restaurant and buy a meal, and it's like, this is all stupid. This doesn't make sense. So
I quite like that concept, Darren. I'd like to see that introduced more widely. It's a great idea. How well accepted was it within the Spearo community over there?
It wasn't. A lot of guys told me, I got a lot of flack, especially from guys close to me, and they thought I've been called a tree hugger and all sorts of things, and guys sort of don't, some guys won't even talk to me, and it's, it's senseless. It's this attitude, but it's my right to kill whatever I want. Well, sorry, it's not your right, and that right can be taken away if we're not seen to be doing the right thing. I mean, other guys have embraced it. There was, I remember there was 2 guys came to a comp where I had it running. So there was a full-on spearfishing comp, and they let me run it alongside. And these 2 guys said, this is fantastic, because one guy said, I only like to take photos. And my mate, who I dive with all the time, he only likes to spear. So, hey, guess what? We're a great partnership in the way they went. And they absolutely loved it. And I think they won the event, if I remember right. So, and it's also been really good for dad and kids, because sometimes the kids don't want to shoot something, but they're happy to muck around with a camera.
Yeah.
So it opens up a whole lot of new doors, but it's that real diehard kill-all Spearo that just think, I'm like the real black sheep when I turn up at an event and I'm pushing this. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now you said you were over Queensland. I remember you saying Lockhart, which was an hour north of Cairns, and you dived a bit of the Great Barrier Reef. I think you mentioned something about filming for a TV show. Was that the Black Magic show over there you're part of?
Yeah. Yeah, so now it's called Fishy Business. We've had some new sponsors, so we've dropped the Black Magic name, and Fishy Business is the new name. We're on New Zealand's premier channel over here over the summer, so we're off here at the moment while we're filming, and we're back on again beginning of February. I think the new series starts. So I think this is year number 5 I've done on that show.
Are they available on DVD, or I've seen a few of your DVDs getting around?
Yep, the DVD that I've got with all my TV shows on is called Diving with Darren.
Okay.
That was what the segment started off being called, so I've just kept that going.
And how big's your segment in the show? How much airtime are you getting?
Well, this series, we were doing an hour show, so my segment could have been anything up to 15 minutes on the show, because an hour show cuts down to 38 minutes or 40 minutes or something by the time you add in ads and bits and pieces.
Yep.
So I was getting a real large share, but the guy who was editing it said it's just too much for him to do, so we've cut back to half an hour, so that'll drop me to 7, 8 to 10 minutes for the next series, depending on what content I've got.
There's like 8 minutes of spearfishing footage is pretty full on, especially if you're covering an area and things like that, and I imagine there's a fair bit of crossover. Well, what sort of places do you go, and what sort of things do you shoot in the show?
So, well, as I was saying, I was going up to the Lockhart, out to the Barrier Reef to film a bit of spearing, but I wasn't allowed to in the end, so I ended up just filming catching a couple of crays, and then I'll probably do a segment on my job as an underwater cameraman for a fishing show, because that's the other side of it, I film underwater for these guys with fish grabbing lures and things like that. Some of the other stuff I've got this year, I've got some amazing stuff of kids catching big crayfish down in Fiordland. That'll air, next year.
Cool.
So all over the show. I'm going to film at the World Champs in Peru next week when I'm over there. So I'll make a bit of a show out of that. So just wherever I'm going, really, I'll make a story out of it.
Yeah, no, that's the best way, and then you can really tell the story of the event with your camera.
Yeah, it's very hard. One thing I've learned, because I've worked with a couple of other guys doing TV shows, it's very hard to script a show when it's this style of thing. And sometimes the best show you can get is the one that's the least organised. You know, you just get up and go, right, I'm going to go to the barrier today and just let's see what's unfold. Because if you script a show about, say, shooting a big snapper or a big yellowtail kingfish or something, it very rarely ever works, you know. But if you go with an open mind, it's amazing what you can pick up and see and do. So
now we'd like to ask you or do our segment called the Fast 5 Facts for Noobs. It's where we sort of ask for your top 5 pieces of advice for the noobs starting out in spearfishing.
Yep. Okay. Top 5. Number 1, don't overcomplicate your gear. Don't go diving dressed up like a Christmas tree.
I like that.
Just good basic kit that gets you started, that's of good quality. Number 2, don't overdo it. You know, don't push it. No fish is worth it. Number 3, become a good hunter. You can be the best athlete in the world, but if you don't know how to hunt a fish, you know, some of my best mates have been amazing athletes, but they can't shoot. They can't hunt a fish. They don't know how to find a fish. Learn to hunt, and that just means spending lots of time in the water. I mean, I'm not a great fan of these freediving courses and things like that, because the guys I take out that have done them, I don't know any of them have ever become a better spear fisherman. And I've said to people, spend that money going on a dive trip. You know, I mean, from a safety point of view, those freediving courses are great. As far as turning you into an amazing spear fisherman, please don't do a course thinking that's going to happen.
Yeah, no.
Another tip. You know, learn a bit about tides and the weather and things like that, how they affect the areas you fish, and understand that, you know, different parts of the year you're going to get different visibility, you're going to get different fishing at different times of the year and that sort of thing. So again, that goes back to the hunting side, I suppose.
Okay.
So is that 5? I think that's about 5.
Yeah, I've got 4 there. You got one more for me, Darren?
One more bit of gold for the noobs.
Be kind to your mother. Make sure you get your day out.
Oh, that's a given, eh?
Yeah.
So we got don't overcomplicate your gear. Dive to your limits. 3, become a hunter. 4 was learn your tides, conditions, etc. And number 5 was, of course, be kind to your mother.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Give her a feed of fish.
That's excellent, Darren. So. Have you got any other sort of message you'd want to send to our audience if you had a chance? What would you like to say to them?
What would I like to say to them? Well, I mean, look after what we've got. You know, don't overdo it. We've already talked about the fishery stocks and things like that. I think that's really the key thing for me now as an older Spearo, and having seen what I've seen. And hey, I've overindulged and taken too many fish. I'm not holier than thou, but honestly, I think with the changing face, the way the world's going, you know, there's more greenies and things like that, which is fair enough. But they might start making decisions and choices for us that we don't want. But if we're not looking after it, they'll do it. So
yeah, I think we're already seeing that here in Australia with the grey nurse shark habitat. I know that Simon was talking about that last week. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
So, obviously, people can come and visit you at your spearfishing store, Weddy. Where is that based at?
Yeah. We're in Albany in Auckland, which is it's on the north shore of Auckland. So it's heading north. If you're flowing in, it's north of the airport. It's a 30-minute drive from the airport, and we're right beside the motorway. We're the easiest spearfishing business in the country to find. I've got 4 buildings in operation here. We're the biggest in New Zealand and growing very fast. My kids are involved. My daughter was New Zealand Spearfishing Woollen Champ last year and second this year. She's been in the New Zealand team the last 2 years. And my son Jackson was number 2 this year and been in the New Zealand team a few times, and he's heading off to Peru with me. So family business. My wife's in the business as well. And, you know, the kids, I've got them diving all the time because I've sort of said to them, anybody can talk the talk, but, you know, very few people can walk the talk. And you've got to become a good Spearo to sell the gear and understand and design the gear, and that's what we do.
Right, so for noobs starting out in New Zealand that maybe want to come and visit you, they don't live in Auckland, do you run, I think I read you run courses, or you run them in association with another mob, do you? Or?
Yeah, I've got a guy that does dive courses, spearfishing courses. It's called Learn to Spearfish. And he sort of dives all over the place and does pool training sessions and things like that. And I'm often in other areas catching up with customers. I do a lot of that, travelling and doing that.
So people can find you on Facebook, and is it weddy.com.nz or .co.nz?
No, it's both, weddy.com or weddy.co.nz, either or. We don't have .com.nz, it's just .com, so... Or .co.nz, we're easy to find.
No probs.
Fantastic.
All right, Darren, it's been great to have you on the show. Thanks for saying hello to the Noob Spearo community and helping us out while we're getting started with this thing. And it's been really good to have you along.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks very much, guys. You're doing a good job there by the sound of it.
Yeah, we're trying our best. We'll catch you again, Darren.
Yeah, good boys. Thanks very much, mate.
Right, thanks a lot, Darren. Bye now. Thanks for listening today, Noob Spearo. If you'd like to find out any more information from today's guest, then head over to noobspearo.com.
We really appreciate you guys as listeners. Without you, we couldn't do the show. So if you want to help us out, leave us a review on iTunes or head on over to noobspearo.com and sign up for our newsletter. We won't send you crap.
So that's all from us. A big hooroo. We hope to see you soon.
Shrek over and out.